So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
Good morning and welcome to Gathering Youth. My name is Landon and I'm one of our leaders here. I'm so glad you decided to join us today. Today you've joined us on a really good day because we are starting a new series and we are calling it What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. And throughout this series we're going to follow a guy called Joseph. And he's a guy that is a major character in the Bible and he goes through a lot. His life is basically a series of unfortunate events that he goes through at all these different ages in his life and how he gets through them and keeps growing in his leadership and in his capability and all of that. It's a great lesson for us to see what to do when we don't know what to do. So we're going to be spending a little bit of time in Genesis over the next few weeks. And today is basically Joseph's origin story. This is part one, and we're just going to talk a little bit about Joseph's origin, Joseph's family life, and we're going to talk a little bit about some problems that developed in Joseph's family life. Because for most of us, family is where a lot of tension can be. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Have you ever noticed that it feels like you kind of live two lives maybe? Where you have an at-home life and then a away-from-home life? Maybe you notice you talk different around your friends than you do around your family. There's certain words you're scared to say around your mom, but you're not scared to say around your friends. Maybe there's a certain thing you'll say around your house that you won't do around your friends. Maybe when you go to visit a friend's house, you're much cleaner than you are at your own house. You're always worried about where you're putting your socks, you're taking your shoes off, you're worried about mud. But when you get home, you act like crazy. You throw the socks wherever they fall, you put the dirty clothes on the floor, it doesn't matter. It can feel like we have those two different lives. And so let's talk a little bit about some tension in family life. So let's go to Genesis. We're going to be in Genesis 37 today, and we're going to be reading a fair bit of the Bible, but I promise you it's worth it, and we're going to cover the story. So first we need to talk about context. There was this guy called Abraham. Now, Abraham is a very, very, very important guy in the Bible. Abraham has two sons. He has one called Ishmael and he has one called Isaac. Now, Isaac is the father of a bunch of people, but Jacob is the guy we're going to talk about. Jacob then has a son called Joseph. He actually has 12 sons. He has 11, and then he has Joseph. Joseph is the youngest of 12 boys, which is a lot of siblings. We know Jacob had 4 wives in his lifetime. So that means Joseph had one mom and then 3 stepmoms. And you can imagine 12 boys, one house, 3 stepmoms, one mom. It would have been a lot of tension in that house. And Joseph was the youngest, so put that in your mind. You've got the picture of that family dynamic. And let's jump into the story. Here we go. Genesis 37:1. It says, Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan. Basically meant where his father was. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Biliath and Zilaph, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now, Israel loved Joseph. Israel's Jacob's other name. So Israel is also the name of Joseph's father. So Israel, or Jacob, whatever you want to call him, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a robe of many colors. So what does that mean? Basically, Joseph's the youngest. And Joseph is the youngest son born to quite an old dad. He's the baby child. I mean, I'm the oldest child. And so I can speak from experience that the youngest child is the favorite child. The youngest child is the baby in the family. The youngest child is that one, okay? The older kids, I just got to say it, us older brothers are always the coolest ones. But anyway, if you're the youngest, you can get mad at me. But that's what happened. And so Joseph runs home, tells his dad that one of his brothers wasn't doing the right thing. He brings a bad report back. But Jacob favors Joseph a lot. And so Jacob makes Joseph a coat of many colors, or called a robe of many colors. Now this is very important because maybe right now you're like, okay, he got a hoodie. That's nice. That's not really the context here. What's really important here is, one, this would have been a very, very, very expensive robe. It would have been very expensive because dyes and colorings were very expensive at this time. It was a very expensive dye. This was also a robe that would have been large. It would have been very expensive. This was really nice. So to put it in today's idea, imagine you are in a family with 12 other siblings, and the youngest gets these brand new, super expensive, one-of-a-kind, signed Jordans. Like Michael Jordan himself signed these, first edition, only thing ever, limited. Nobody else has it. It's worth a ton, and he gives it to your youngest sibling and not to anybody else in the family. Imagine that. Now imagine the tension that is beginning to raise in this family. It's getting a little tight. Let's continue. It says, but when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to them. So now we just see this tension beginning to rise in this family. First, Joseph is the youngest. Second, Joseph is the favorite. He gets this coat of many colors. And three, Joseph went and tattled on his brothers. This would have infuriated them. I mean, look at the Bible. It says they could not speak peacefully to him. You ever had somebody in your life that you just got to avoid them because nothing good will come out of your mouth if you try and talk to them? You know how like maybe your mom used to say, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all? This was what was happening. This was a very, very tense household. And then, of course, Joseph makes it a little worse. Here we go. Verse 5, it says, now Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field. These are like bundles of grass, of wheat, okay? Put that in your mind, like a big hay bale. He said, so he sees all of these sheaves in the field. And my sheaf stood upright, and behold, all of your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. His brothers said to him, are you indeed to reign over us? Or are you indeed to rule over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamt another dream and told it to his brothers. He said, behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down for me. But when he told this to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you? And his brothers were jealous of him. But his father kept the saying in mind, kept the dream in mind. So what's happened here? Again, Joseph is the favorite. He gets this coat of many colors. His father is favoriting him. And then he goes and he tells his brothers, he says, basically, I saw in my dream, he saw two dreams, but basically both dreams were that they were going to be under him. He was going to be elevated and they were going to be lowered. That was what was going to happen, that they were going to be bowed down to him. Now, a few things. Notice, the brothers were not mad that Joseph was dreaming. They weren't mad that he was dreaming. His father was not mad that Joseph was dreaming. They were mad at their places in Joseph's dreams. And that's where people will get upset. And it's not necessarily wrong, but that's where people are going to get upset. When you begin to share the visions God has put in your life, people are not mad that God has given you dreams and visions and ambition. They're mad at their place in the vision. That's that jealousy, that seed in us, that we get jealous when we think because God is going to elevate somebody else, it's unfair to us. So you can just imagine the tension in this house. The tension, there's a lot here. And then we continue. So basically Joseph went out to the field. He went to go pasture. And his brothers gathered together and his brothers plotted to kill Joseph. Again, I told you Joseph had a lot of unfortunate things happen to him. And so his brothers end up taking him and throwing him into this well. They were going to kill him, but one of the brothers said, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him in this deep well, just like a big, deep pit. No way he was coming out. Let's throw him into this pit. We don't have to kill him. Let's take his coat, take it back to our father and say he's dead. And we can also sell him into slavery and get some money. So that's what they did. They sold him into slavery. They took his coat and they went back home and told their dad that he was dead. Now that's where we're going to leave the story of Joseph, and we're going to pick it back up again next week. But there's a lot just from this small piece of story that we can talk about today. Notice one, Joseph was not very good at communicating the right thing. Joseph's vision was correct. God gave him that dream and God gave him that vision. But his way of communicating was wrong. See, Joseph was not put in a very good situation with this. His dad made a mistake with favoriting him. Now, it's okay for your parents to bless you and love you, but Jacob, the dad, made a mistake there. He should not have been so obviously favoriting one of his kids. But nevertheless, Joseph should have been smart enough to realize that, hey, let's not make this any worse. Notice Joseph tattles. Joseph, flaunts his stuff. He goes and talks all these dreams to his brothers. This was not good. See, what was happening here is there was tension that was being taken over time. See, there's an equation I want you to do, and I hate math, but here's a great equation to think. Tension plus time equals toxicity. Tension plus time equals toxicity. There was tension in this family. Sometimes tension is going to arise in your family. It will. If there's no tension, you're not having healthy conversations. But there was tension. And Joseph and his dad and his family allowed this tension to fester over time. And then because this tension festered over time, it became toxic. And because it was toxic, his brothers tried to murder Joseph and sold him into slavery. All of this leads back, all of it, we just go back to his father favoriting him and Joseph not treating it right. So what do we learn here? How do we take this home to our own family feud? How do we take this home to avoid that toxicity? Well, first, tension is okay and tension is good, but you can't leave tension. See, remember here in Scripture in the Bible, it says his brothers could not have a kind word with Joseph. His brothers were refusing to talk with Joseph. So that's the first thing we've got to know is we've got to actually talk. We've got to. Joseph should have known to talk. His dad should have known to talk. His brothers should have known to talk. So take that home. Put that in your heart, in your mind. Whenever there is tension, if you leave that tension over time, it will get worse and worse. You've got to deal with the tension. And you've got to communicate clearly. See, Joseph could have been very clear in communicating to his brothers that these visions were not about you being worse than me. It was about me getting blessed. But he didn't communicate it right. Now, he was only 17, and some of you are younger than that. Some of you are 17, some of you are 18. I don't know how old all of you are. But Joseph was old enough to understand that this would rile his brothers up. And his brothers should have been mature enough, because they were all older than him, to take this. So this whole family dynamic here Joseph had here was dysfunctional. Isn't it good to know that everybody's family has a little bit of dysfunction in it, and including some of the most important families in history had a lot of dysfunction? That's very encouraging to me. But we see in this story ways not to act. We see in this story that Joseph should have been more wise. He should have had more counsel. He should have known when to say things and how to say it better. And he definitely should not have let the toxicity sit over time. And if that's all you take home from this message, that's perfect. That's exactly what's great. What to do when you don't know what to do. When you encounter tension in your family, what to do? Deal with it. Do not let it sit over time, or it will become toxic. That's all for today, guys. I can't wait for next week. We are going to continue the rest of Joseph's story. It gets really good. We are just in the opening chapters here of Joseph's story. There's a lot coming up. There's some really cool stuff happening. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss as we continue through Joseph's life. He gives us so many cool and interesting things to learn and to know that we can use and apply today. So thank you so much for joining us today. I want to invite you to join us next week. I want to invite you to join us this Wednesday night for our G Groups Online, which you can check out by going to our website, which is on the bottom of your screen right now, which is www.gatheringchurch.cc/youth, or you can go to our Instagram and find all of that information. Our Instagram account is @WeAreGatheringYouth. Youth is spelled YTH, and that is the best way to keep up with everything going on in Gathering Youth. Can't wait to see you next time. Have a good one.